Okay, so let's build a very basic, non-production, no security Citrix lab environment. Now, my environment is pretty awesome. I am lucky enough to have a Nutanix system to play with. So this is a Nutanix 3000 series, which is a bit of a beast for doing VDI. So on it, I'm running ESX. I think this lab's got ESX 5.5 on it. Doesn't really matter too much what ESX you have, as long as you've got ESX with a vCenter pre-configured. I won't go through how to configure vCenter. I'm sure there's a billion videos online talking about it. But here you can see I have 4 servers, and here they are, ESX 5.5 up the top there. And I have a VMware vCenter server appliance managing them, and that's what I'm logged into here. Again, there's no real strange configuration here. It's just pretty much out of the box. In my setup, I mentioned having a Bastion host, which is actually the machine I'm logged into right now, and I have 2 Active Directory systems pre-configured. Ignore all these other VMs. These are just from my other labs, and I'm a little lazy to delete them. So we're going to need a few things for us to get started with Citrix. So the first thing we're going to need is a Windows 2012 server to run the labs on. So normally I have templates and all the rest of it, but I'm going to assume you have nothing, and let's just do the whole process. So it helps if I click in the right place. So let's create a new virtual machine. I'm going to go new virtual machine. I like to live dangerous, so let's customize it. And we're going to call this Windows 2012. Actually, you know what? Let's give it the final name. Let's just call it Lab CTX for Citrix 01. Hopefully I don't have another one called the same thing. Let's hit next, and I'm going to store it on my Nutanix data store here. Nice and quick. Virtual machine version 8, that's fine. We're going to install Windows 2012, so hit next. Now, again, I've got a nice grunty lab system here, so I will give it a whole bunch of CPU. It actually doesn't need that much, but while I set it up, I'll give it a whole bunch. And I, again, am a bit spoiled, so I'm going to give it a lot of memory, because I'm a bit spoiled, I can. VMXNet, nice fast controller. So hit, oh, wait, almost made the big mistake. Got to connect it to the right network. On a Nutanix system, you'll always have 2 networks out of the box. The SVM, iSCSI, sometimes it's called, is for the internal controllers. If anyone understands Nutanix, I want to put it on VM network, which is my normal network. Hit next, and I'm just going to accept pretty much the rest of the defaults. Thin provision, again, I'm on a Nutanix, so I can do that. It's going to be the fastest, most optimum. I'll give it 80 gig. Because the Nutanix is thin provisioned, it's not actually consuming this capacity until writes are committed to disk. Next, and that should do the trick. So I'll hit finish on that, and let's power it up. So it's just creating it. There is my VM. Let's bring up the console. Just give it a second, and I'll give it some media. Oh, what did I click? I got too excited with my clicking. So that machine's booted, but obviously it's got no operating system, so I'll just pass it the ISO. So again, remembering my first video, I've got the software already on my jump box. So there's my Windows 2012 image, and I'll just load that in, bounce the host. Oops, still connecting. Just give that a second. Hopefully no VCDXs are sitting here yelling at the screen that I'm doing it wrong. There's 100 ways to do this. I'm trying to do it the long way, just for anyone that hasn't played much with VMware before, so they can see how simple it is. Okay, so We want to install English. I'm in Australia, as you can tell from my accent. Install now. Setup starting. Now, while that's happening, I'm going to set up a second virtual machine, and this will end up being my VDI SOE template. So I'll call that one lab, LAB Win701. Hit next. I want to store that on my same Nutanix data store. That's fine. This one's going to be Windows 7 64-bit. So hit next. Let's give it 2 virtual CPUs. And let's give it 4 GB RAM. That's plenty. Put it on the right network, my VM network. Again, VMX Net 3. And I'll pretty much accept all of them except for this one, thin provision. I'll give it 40 gig, doesn't really matter. But finish that off, so it's going to create that new VM. Here it is. I'll start it up and open a console for it. So that'll start up in a second. While that's happening, I'll just kick my server install along. So I'm going to install the data center server with a GUI because my PowerShell foo isn't that strong. Accept the license terms. Custom. Pretty much accept all the defaults here. And it's going to go off and install. Remember that you'll have to hit Control-Alt to get out of the window. And then I'll jump over to my Windows 7 machine, add the media. Now I think I've got this ISO stored on the data store, so I'll just find where I've put it. ISOs, Windows 7. Just wait for that to connect. Takes a few seconds to connect. There it is, it's done. I'll just restart this with Control-Alt-Delete, and my Windows install will kick along. There it is. And this is pretty much the same process as the server that I'm installing. So there's my server, there's my Windows 7. You, if you wanted to, could do a Windows 8 install. I'm just a lot more familiar with Windows 7. So I'll start off by doing a Windows 7 lab. Also, most enterprises for VDI are still deploying and using Windows 7. I have a sneaky suspicion that that'll sort of become our default for the next few years. So time and currency, I'm in Australia, so I'll leave it at that. Next, install now. And the setup is going to be just like any normal Windows setup. Control-Alt to break out. If I wanted to, I'll just accept that. Custom, next. And they're both installing. Control-Out, Alt-Break into the next one, so I can see they're buzzing along. So I'm going to assume that you've walked away and come back to this screen, which is your Windows server is asking for some settings. So you want to throw in a password here. That's my standard password. I try and use the same password everywhere in my lab. And now my Windows machine is pretty much ready to go. So Control-Alt to break out, come up here, and I need to install the guest VMware Tools. So say yes to that. VMware Tools, that's okay, it's just kicking the CD-ROM off. Go back to that. VMware Tools is needed because I'm using the VMX Net driver. And also it means I won't have to stop or won't have to keep hitting Control-Alt every time I want to break out of the window there. So that's going to happen for me now. Oops. Bit of a noob thing to do there. How embarrassing. Okay, so VMware Tools is going to install. It's going to hit Control-Alt, break out, check on my other machine. Oops. Over here. Same deal. Wants a username. Just fill it out. So this is the computer name I gave it before. There's my password. I'm not going to put any kind of Windows update on this. It's picked up my time zone. The time's wrong, but we'll fix that later. And I'll just flick back to my other desktop here. Just kick the VMware Tools install along. We're going to do the same thing for the Windows 7 machine. You know that the network's working when this thing pops up. This is good, and all of a sudden I can start breaking in and out of the VM with my mouse. So VMware Tools is installed. So I'll just come over here, same thing on my Windows 7 host, install, upgrade, VMware Tools, next. You'll notice the mouse is a bit clunky before they're installed. Here's my auto run. Yes, I want to install it. Break out, back to my other one here. Hit finish, yes. Restart. And while that's restarting, I'll just do the Windows 7 one. It's minimized. Come on. Again, I know it's working because my network location screen's popped up. And finish. Yes, I can restart. And that pretty much now gives you a basic Windows 7 and Windows 2012 machine to play around with, which is pretty cool. And that's going to be the start of our lab. Now, what I would suggest is you've done all this hard work. You've got these two machines here. If you wanted to, shut them down and clone them out. So you can clone them to just have another machine ready to go. Or you can basically clone it to a template. That's what I'd suggest you do. Shut the Citrix one there, that server one, down and clone it to a template. So that way later on, if we want to spin up another machine, we can. So just a little bit of a thing to do. But in the meantime, we're starting to cook with gas.